Welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast, hosted by coaches Bill and Essen. With so many fitness fads and trends, compounded with hundreds of mixed reviews, it is nice to know that this madness can be simplified into meaningful content, whether you want to believe it or not. There are millions of Americans that are literally eating themselves to death, a learned behavior that has been passed down from generation to generation. Let's connect with the team that has the knowledge and experience to change this.
Welcome, everyone. This is Coach Bill with Coach Esten, and today's segment is regarding general fitness. More specifically, having a healthy body weight, as well as the ability to perform physical activities or exercises without tiring easily. And that's pretty much everyone's goal, I hope, is be able to get around easily, feel good about themselves, and, be able to do things that you want to do, without being limited because of your physical limitations, whether it be because your knees are hurting, shoulders are hurt, which may be a result of your weight. I think the biggest thing, Esten, is weight.
Yes.
More than anything, weight has so much wear and tear on your body over a period of time, especially. So,
well, I think weight is force, and force is gravity.
You're right. Exactly.
So the more weight you have, the more gravitational force you have on you.
Right. And I know at one time or another, we have all tried to get back in shape, and we've all failed over and over again. And
Yes.
That's why it's such a big business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'd like to go over today is why we always fail. And one of the reasons is, why can't we be more consistent? What is the secret recipe, formula, method, all of the above, to being successful in getting where you want to go? And here is something that I'd like to mention, that the Department of Health and Human Services have a guideline, and at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity. And that's a key word, moderate. And we'll get more into that in a little bit of this podcast. Or 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity a week. Now, we'll strip that down a little bit about vigorous aerobic.
Mm-hmm.
There's another term for that, a week. This is all for a week. 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity a week, or 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity per week is the guidelines, is what's recommended.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can say a combination of the two. So, so that's a good segue for the next topic, and that is, do most people understand the difference between aerobic and anaerobic? Do they, Esten? I don't think they do.
No, most people don't even know what anaerobic means. People may think they understand aerobic because they've seen it on TV with gym commercials or gym equipment.
Right.
But if you ask most people on the street, like, what does the word aerobic mean? I don't think most would know. And then when you would say anaerobic, you probably get a lot of blank stares. They would give examples like a treadmill, a bicycle,
right,
a rowing machine. Yes, those are aerobic machines. And what do you do on them? Walk, cycle, you row, but it's all about time. And most people understand what aerobic metabolism is versus anaerobic metabolism, or even what the word metabolism means.
Yeah. So let's go back to what the Human Services, Department of Health and Human Services recommends. Okay. So 150 minutes of moderate aerobic. So I like that, the way they worded that, moderate aerobic. Why is moderate so key when it comes to aerobic?
Well, because aerobic activity it's an endurance activity, which means time, and it's slow and steady wins the race. So moderate means slow and steady. And what's slow and steady? Well, at least to break a sweat, to increase your breathing rate, to increase your heart rate above your normal resting rate. And then be consistent about that over a series of minutes, say 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45
at least 20.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going beyond 60 minutes, you don't need to do more than basically at least an hour a day of moderate activity, which means just get up and move. Take the stairs instead of the escalator or elevator. That's one example of how you can do moderate activity throughout the day. And when you add it up at the end of the day, at least you've got an hour in.
Yeah.
It's better, I guess, if you could do it all at once, but it's called incidental exercises. So if you do blocks of 20 throughout the day, then you've been moving all day, and that's moderate activity. That's aerobic because it's been consistent. It's not stop-start. Like getting up from your sofa to go to the kitchen to come back to the sofa is not aerobic.
Nope, that's just movement.
Well, it's anaerobic because you're using, sugars to do that. You're not using fats. And fat is what you're trying to lose, body composition.
So what's vigorous aerobic really? I mean, that could be combined into one word, couldn't it? Vigorous aerobic?
Well, yeah, vigorous aerobic is just a little bit higher than that. More intensity, not sprinting, but now you're really breaking out into a sweat. Now your heart rate and breathing rate are really above any type of moderate resting rate. So if you've ever had to walk up one flight of stairs, how did that feel? That's moderate. How did you feel when you walk up like 4 flights of stairs? That's more vigorous feeling. So vigorous
would that be
more
classified as anaerobic then?
Well, I'm just saying that the feeling that you get, and then you maintain that feeling for 20, 30, 40 minutes. It's vigorous is more like you almost have to catch your breath, that type of feeling. Whereas moderate is you're breathing a little bit heavier. You can actually, now you're aware of your heart rate. Now you're aware of your breathing. That's more moderate. But vigorous is that you're almost like panting, but not quite, because panting would then be sprinting. And for a lot of people, it takes time to get to know what's called, your kinesthetic awareness, your awareness of your body and how it feels at different activities. It's a learned behavior. There's a chart called perceived exertion. So on a scale from 0 to 10, what do you feel right now? Most people, when they're exercising, should be around a 7. 5 to 7. 5 would be moderate, 7 would be more vigorous. And as long as you can say, well, I kind of feel that on a scale from 1 to 10, then you're in that zone. Anything below a 5, let's say, you're anaerobic. Anything above a 7, you could be anaerobic because you're sprinting at that point.
So anaerobic, what's so big about that? Well, I mean, why do I care?
Well, ana means not. So anaerobic is not aerobic. So anaerobic is another energy system. We have basically 3 energy systems in our body. One is like baseline creatine phosphate. It allows you to blink your eyes and all the fun things that you do just to get through the day. Then when you get up and do a little bit more activity, like walking to the mailbox, chopping up vegetables to cook, that's all anaerobic. You use sugars. You can also use it to sprint in an emergency. And then the third energy system is aerobic, which is meant for long distance walking, long distance activities, like we used to do. There was a time when we didn't have cars. You had to walk. There was a time whenever if you wanted a meal, you had to kind of run after the animal. Our bodies today are no different than those that we like that. So to use those energy systems, you have to simulate that activity, hence the treadmill, the bicycle, the rowing machine. But again, it's meant to give us the ability to cross long distances and have energy to do that. That's why our body stores the energy in the form of fat in anticipation for needing to do that when we migrated with the herds to follow them.
Right.
We have the same body today as when we lived in bivouacs on the tundra hunting caribou.
What's changed? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say our bodies don't know that our lifestyle has changed. We now drive cars. We have escalators. We have elevators. Our bodies don't know that, and therefore we are not adapting too well to that high technology, which is helping us. In fact, now it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's coming back to hurt us by storing the body fat because we're eating a lot of high fatty foods, which again, fat is very hard to find in nature. So when we did find it, our body stored it. Now you can walk up to any speaker and say, I'll have a super value meal, and it's laden with fat. Our bodies don't understand that. So on a biochemical
Nor does it care.
Well, it's doing your body
survival only.
Well, your body is doing what it's designed to do. You bring in an ingredient, it puts it where it's supposed to go. Sugar goes to the liver. Fat, if you're not using it, goes right to adipose tissue. Minerals can go to the bone or wherever they're needed. It's just doing what our DNA is programmed to do, regardless of supply and demand. So right now we have really more supply than the demand, and that's where you're getting into these storage problems with obesity. So you keep adding on, and also sugar. Sugar can also be stored. Sugar can also be stored as fat. So, so our bodies are just doing what they're designed to do based on the original model. And the model hasn't changed much. Yes, our appendix is, a secondary stomach that shrank. We're slowly losing our little toe on our foot. But other systems in our body have not adapted to this new way of living, which is, everything's instantaneous. You don't have to hunt down your food.
Right.
You don't have to climb a tree.
Right. Point taken. Right.
So that's why we have to simulate that. We call that exercise.
And a lot of people, I don't beat this up too much, but there's a lot of things about cortisol, and then there's you have insulin. Those are all fat blockers, meaning that there's a time and place to have they are needed. And to your point, your body doesn't care or understand why we're doing it. It just knows that it has to do it. When there's fight or flight is a cortisol, that's when you get the anaerobic. There's a time and place for that. It used to be, not anymore, but to your point, we have to simulate that. Insulin, when you eat, that prepares your cells for put sugars, so it's for energy. It prepares it. It doesn't care why it's doing it. It just has to do it because there's a trigger. You're eating, and it says, "Well, I got to get ready to get my energy to my cells." So we have to simulate it, and we've lost track of that. And that's to my next point is, why is fitness always tied to exercise first and foremost? Because it sells. I mean, you have all this equipment, all that, whether it be the equipment you use to work out, or the equipment you take with you to work out with, the clothes, the water bottles, the towels, the post, pre, and during exercise drinks and shakes and all that stuff. It all sells. I know we had a little discussion before we went on this podcast about fitness. I used to be like, I had to go to the gym, and I did, and I was getting very, very little results. I was busting my butt.
Yeah, we talked about that before. 80% of who you are is your food. You can exercise all you want, but if you don't put the right foods in you to modify your body to the way that it should adapt to the exercise, it's like people that take, I don't know, high blood pressure medication and still don't deal with their anger issues.
It's also how to eat it, when to eat it, and there's so much to your body. But once you understand how it works, then it's easy to train it, and then you get your results. So, but that's hard to do. That's how you sell something like that. It's because it's a process. Fitness, exercise sells because it's not a process. It's a product that you're selling. Good.
Well, when I was a trainer, I used to give like easy tools for people to use when it came to food and portion control. I'd say, put up the palm of your hand, put it out. The palm is protein. The fingers are carbohydrates like vegetables, and the thumb is fat. That's what every meal should be.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
So what would be a fat? What would be a fat?
Fat could be like a sauce, something you're adding to, like, hollandaise sauce. If you're having eggs Benedict, only have about only as much as your thumb can cover on top of the eggs. Instead of drowning it in hollandaise sauce, have just a little sprinkle of it, just a taste.
Gotcha.
All you need. You don't need it to be drowning in it. Even sometimes that includes certain sauces, like they have a lot of sugars in them, a lot of fats in them, some pasta sauces. You got to read ingredients to find out what's in it. So those are just some quick little tools I would give somebody. So let's say you have a chicken breast. That should be the size of the palm of your hand. Let's say you're going to have some mixed steamed vegetables. That should be able to fit on your fingers. And let's say you want to put a little butter on your vegetables. Well, that should be the size of your thumb. The width of your thumb, and then let that melt all through it. And then you get a little bit of everything, because it's not that fat is bad. We need fat. Without fat, we don't have myelin sheathing for our nerves. We don't have certain hormones. We need fat. But again, too much is, again, not a good thing. This fat, again, is meant to be utilized other than, our infrastructure. It's also a fuel source. And unless you're using it as a fuel source, your body will store it thinking for feast or famine, never realizing the famine's coming. So it's good to utilize.
It doesn't care why it's doing it. It just knows it has to.
Biochemically, it's pre-programmed to do what it does. And until we can do genetic re-engineering like on Star Trek, it's not going to change.
Right. So we have a little time for that. So that's a nice segue to the next topic is, how does one know they're in good health? And I know we had a nice discussion about the BMI, body mass index. What does that mean? What do you mean? But what's a body mass index? And that's an old way of calculating what? your weight and your height, right?
Yeah, to give an overall,
regardless of your age or your gender, correct?
Yeah, it's based on body morphology, where there was an assumption that men have certain types of bodies and women have certain types of bodies. And it's basically, I think the last time it was updated was in the 1950s or 60s, when the average male was 5'10", and the average woman was maybe 5'4". Well, in modern times, the average man now is about 6 foot, and the average woman is about 5'9", 5'10". So they're outdated.
It's so outdated. We actually had some fun with this. We did our own calculations, right? So we did this BMI with my measurements, 6'2", 219, and my BMI. Again, let's pull up this chart. The chart. My ideal weight was, with the BMI, it was 193. Okay, I'm 219. So I fell into the overweight category. On the flip side, we both in agreement, and we do stress about body fat is the more modern measuring tool or measuring stick.
It's called body composition, where you measure your body fat versus your lean body mass to give your ideal health.
Right. That's more of a more accurate indicator. So I was 11.8% body fat, even though the BMI said I was overweight.
Yes. Or over fat is what they're saying to you.
Okay.
When they say overweight, they mean over fat.
They mean over fat. Maybe they do. Probably they do. 11.8% is my body fat, so I fall in the category of athlete.
Yes.
You were 6'4", 230, and our ages are both in the getting mid-50s almost. You're higher, your later 50s.
Yes.
Your body fat was 11%, which is in the category of athletes. So we're both in the category of athletes, meaning that if you look at an athlete, you think someone said you're athletic, or you're not athletic, but you feel like an athlete. That's a compliment. That means you're in good health.
Yeah.
That's
performance. That's physiology. But according to our body structures, body fat said we were healthy. BMI said we weren't.
Correct.
That's the main thing to take away from this. So therefore, that's why I feel, and I think you feel, body composition is a better indicator than BMI. BMI can be very skewed because it doesn't take into the composition of the total body weight.
To really understand that if your weight is not the main factor in determining if you're in good health or not, it's the amount of fat that you hold. Wouldn't you agree, Eston?
Yes, it's the composition of your total body weight, your lean body mass versus your fat mass.
So lean body is that all in one? How you calculate your lean body mass? I know I have a formula, but is there a way to really, for someone on the average Joe out there, to understand what that means, lean body mass?
Generally, it's done by doing what's called skin calibrations, in which a skin caliper is used to measure your subcutaneous body fat. That's the fat under your skin at certain key points. There's a formula that's followed, and then that's put into a graph there's cheat sheets that personal trainers and exercise physiologists have. It's a very long metabolic formula, but basically having that done. And online, there are certain websites you can go to. I believe you found one or two that they can actually do it themselves and then put in the formula. But the key thing is lean body mass is everything that your weight is minus fat. You need to know, to be healthy, to find out if your lean body mass is higher than your fat mass, obviously, percentage-wise. Generally speaking, a man being around 10 to 12% is very healthy, and a woman being around 12 to 18 is healthy, generally speaking.
So, like you said, just say someone wants to go to a doctor. Does it have to be a doctor? Can it be someone?
No. Most personal trainers who are certified through ACSM or even AFA would know how to do a body fat skin calibration. So I would seek out trainers that are certified through the American College of Sports Medicine or the Aerobics and Fitness Association of America. Those are just two that come to mind.
Okay. There's several others, obviously.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned about a link.
And if they are a member, let's say, of a hospital-based wellness center, usually exercise physiologists, which have a degree in exercise science, will also know how to do a body fat calibration. Some dietitians even know how to do it.
Very good. And after this podcast is over, I'll actually put a link out there to the website that I use.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, it's a rough estimate. It's a general idea on where you stand with things. So it's something that, and when it comes to fitness, it's not a perfect science. It's really trying to understand where you are in a I guess a measurement or a category is a better choice of words. What category are you following? Are you obese, overweight? Are you I guess we're athletes, things like that. That's how I gauge myself and my clients is what category are you following. It doesn't have to be exactly, but it's something that it's good to know. I mean, we're not training to be Olympic athletes. We're not in football, basketball. We're not getting paid to play anything. We get paid to work, but our health, understanding how your body works and how to keep it fit is what we're all about. So, falling into that category is more important.
There's a difference between athletic and being an athlete.
True.
Yeah. Usually, athlete is a profession; it's a short-term career. But being athletic can be a lifelong health status.
Good point. Yep, very good point. That's a nice segue to our next topic, which is how does someone find the right fitness program? What does that mean? I'll answer that with a question. What kind of program are you looking for? Are you looking to build bulk? Are you looking to get thin or to stay thin, to have lean body muscle? Are you looking to be able to run a marathon? There's so many different types of programs that you can fall into.
So what do you like to do? Do you like to walk? Do you like to cycle? Do you like to swim? And we're not talking, like at the point where like you're exercising, but do you enjoy the water? Do you enjoy just walking outdoors with your dog? Do you like playing with your children in the backyard? Those are all activities that can then springboard you into a more consistent, quote unquote, exercise program. Yeah. Most people like to walk. Most people do. And if you have a pet like a dog, you have to walk your dog anyways. So big or small, your dog needs exercise like you do. So maybe that's the first place to start. Buy a halter for your dog, leash him up, and go.
Yep. And here's the thing that a lot of people overlook, and that is it's a progression. We live in a society where everything is quick. You go up to everything's like a drive-through mentality, and then I'm going to drive through, get what I want, and I'm good to go. When it comes to this, to eating, to work, to exercising, to being fit, quote unquote fit, I put quotes on there because fit is a terminology that's relative to the individual, right? But being healthy is not. Healthy is what we were just talking about, which is just lean muscle mass, and your body fat percentage. That's regardless of who you are and what you like to do, that is pretty much consistent through no matter what you do. But then when it comes to this, the right fitness program, it's going to take time to achieve what you're looking for. Usually, I mean, you just can't all of a sudden for 1 week just pretty much kill yourself at the gym and expect to be good to go the next week. It doesn't work that way. So
I always say give yourself at least a year. If you finish it in 6 to 9 months, you're ahead of goal. It took you years to get where you are. It's going to take a few months to reverse in the hands of time.
At least a couple months. I'd say at least 3 months to break the bad habits, eating as well.
Yeah, you're right. It is
your mentality.
Everything's about habits. Yeah, it's about breaking habitual habits and also turning off that recorder in your mind that says you're a failure, you're not worth this. That whole little conversation that people have in their heads. You've got to reprogram that tape too.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing that a lot of people don't understand is it really comes to the first step in fitness is eating. And what I tell people is if you have anything, I give them a chart or a list of foods they can choose from. It ranges anywhere from mixed nuts to steak, but it's a schedule throughout the day, 3 times a day at least. without any snacks. But anyways, you start there. If you can't be consistent with the way you eat, how can you be consistent in exercising?
Yes.
Eating consistently is so much easier than exercise, because exercise does take more energy, A, and B, you have to find a place to exercise, and C, you have to be willing to at least spend an hour buffering. It could be 20, it could be 30 minutes, but at least an hour to when you get up, to when you get going, to when you finish, to when you sit down. It could be an hour, it could be less. But the point is, if you can't be consistent in eating, how do you expect to be consistent in exercise?
Correct.
So, if you learn to be consistent, at least one of those things, it does, like you said, to springboard to other things. You be consistent in exercise, and you be consistent in wanting to do more and be willing to try different things, and also with eating. So it's to your point, Eston, that you have to be committed. Your mindset has to be committed. But with that being said, who can help you with that? And I have a note in here, and we can talk about that, is find a wellness coach. Someone that understands this process of breaking habits, of someone who understands that it's going to take some time, who's willing to put the time in with you. He's going to step you through that and be helping you and encouraging you. Another thing is having someone to do this workout with. Is there anything else you want to add to that? Anything that I may have missed with those 2 points?
No, I would say just look at your environment. I always say start with what you have, and then when you get more motivation, then if you need to go to join like an outside source, like a gym, then do that. Sometimes if you have financial constraints, if you've got your own body weight, and if you've got a surface to walk on and an area to walk within, you've got your built-in gym. A lot of people don't.
Good point. Good point.
They don't feel. A lot of people don't feel secure in gyms because they feel like they're being judged, and sometimes they are, and I get that. But that's something I would say is just keep it simple. It doesn't have to be as complex. Our bodies are designed to move, so just move.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I like the buddy system only because I've been doing this for about 3 years, so it's not hard for me to get motivated because I've been doing it. It's a habit. I formed a habit, something that I can't do without. But it really was. It really encouraged me when I was during those first year of breaking the bad habits, changing the way of thinking, to have someone to push me a little bit. And I like the buddy system only because it helps lean on the other person to you're accountable to them. If they're doing it, why can't you do it, type of thing?
Or if you have a dog, I keep going back to pets, but pets are wonderful.
There you go. Pets
companions.
Yeah.
I don't know about cats, but dogs or birds, but dogs make great
are more
buddies.
Inclined.
Yeah, they are, because they love to move too. They like to run. They like to jump.
They do. And that's actually a nice point, because a lot of people might be embarrassed. And I want to state to everyone out there that don't be afraid to express yourself, to try these different things, because it's about you anyways. It's not about what other people think. It's about what's good for you. And that's your opinion is what counts, is what you think about yourself. So don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone and try different things, because there's so many ways, and you mentioned 4 of them, Eston, about how to get fit. Our bodies are designed to move. Just move. What do you mean by that? I mean, just get up and get a cup of coffee, sit down? No. No. Use a little bit of ingenuity here. I mean, try to be moving consistently over at least 20 minutes.
Incidental exercise with taking stairs instead of elevators and escalators, going out and washing your car, doing gardening, raking leaves, doing your laundry, all those things. When you add it up at the end of the day, you've been active all day, and that burns calories. Now, granted, it may be stop-start, so that could help build a little bit of strength and a little bit of power in your muscles, but then take that and start walking around the block, as you decompress from working all day, or to rev up to get ready for the day. Get up half an hour earlier than you normally would and walk. Or just before you go to bed, take half an hour before you go to bed, walk. Trust me, it's the best sedative, especially if you're having trouble sleeping. Do a nice little walk with purpose, a little sweat on the upper lip, and take a nice hot shower, and you'll sleep like a baby.
And when you're done with that, you shouldn't be, like you mentioned earlier in this podcast, you shouldn't be huffing and puffing and really sweating. You should have your heart should be elevated. You should be breathing a little bit heavier. That's aerobic. That's one way to gauge how hard you should go. So it's all good. And I know, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, there's one thing that if someone's asking, like, what's a complete fitness center, we used to call them 20-20-20s. Do 20 minutes of cardio, 20 minutes of strength training, 20 minutes of flexibility. Everyone forgets to stretch. Stretching is also a viable way of getting strength and power in your body, especially as we get older. We lose flexibility. We become more rigid. So especially as we get older, don't forget flexibility. So do 20-20-20. That gives you, there's almost your hour. By the time you warm up and cool down, that's a nice way to break it up. You can do it in any sequence that you want, although I recommend flexibility at the end because your body's all warm. The muscles are more pliable. They won't tear as easy. But that's just off the top. If someone's looking for some type of easy structure, just do 20-20-20s.
Yep. And I would also add to that stretching also helps with the circulation areas that the microfibers have been torn by working out. It helps with flush that through and get the healing. It helps with the healing process. Okay. So basically, we already mentioned these things about, having a buddy. It starts with a mindset. It's very difficult to train your own. And especially when you're getting home from work, a long day at work. But if you really wanted to have a change in your life, if you really want to see a difference and how a positive difference of getting fit, how well you feel and how you forget how it is to be healthy because you're so used to being unhealthy, you've really got to be willing to do it. And remember, just because someone is healthier or looks healthier than you or doing more weight or can run faster, jump higher, it doesn't matter. It's really about the individual. One size doesn't fit all. You just can't base yourself on someone else. But you can base on their habits. Do they eat well? Yes. Are they consistent in their eating? Yes. Do they exercise regularly? Yes. Do they sleep well? Yes. Yes. All these yeses add up to great health. So anything else you want to add, Eston?
Well, then also we talked about earlier about being, getting a buddy. And for some people that are very isolated, they don't feel comfortable reaching out to somebody. Use the reflection in your mirror as your buddy. Fall in love with yourself, support yourself, and then embrace the changes that you begin to see and give yourself a pat on the back as you notice your inches are changing. Because weight may not change because it's about density. But if you're noticing that you have a more defined neckline, you're noticing that you have a waistline better, that your thighs have a little bit more space between them. Those are things to celebrate, and why not do that with your best buddy, which is yourself? And that's the person you see in the mirror. So I would just add that.
Good
when
point.
we say buddy system, if you're not comfortable reaching out to somebody or you don't have a pet, you're already born with everything you need. You're born with yourself. You should be your own best friend, your own cheerleader. Because if not, like Paul says, if you can't love yourself, how can you love anybody else? Well, if you don't support yourself, how can you expect other people to support you? So that would just be one.
Or you won't be. Great point. And I was going to add to that. And sorry to interrupt. That if you can't do that, how can you accept praise from someone else? You won't be able to receive it. If you can't do it to yourself, how are you going to receive it too? So, let's face it. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you see that when a lot of people can't accept compliments because they don't compliment themselves. And that goes back to that earlier podcast that we talked about dysmorphia, self-loathing, looking in the mirror and saying, oh my God, who could ever love someone like me? Well, if you're saying that, that's probably what you're putting out. So that's another part when I was talking about reprogramming that little voice in your head, which is your worst enemy sometimes, make it your best friend. But your words have power. They become action. And that's your motivating force. So when you're at your lowest and you're not succeeding because you slipped up one day, that's the voice that you want to hear in your head. Like, it's okay. Everyone slips up and it's okay. Ice cream's ice cream. At least you didn't eat the whole container. You had a bowl. Okay, moving forward.
Yep. And remember that it's not that one day that makes a difference. It's at the end of the week.
Correct.
More good than bad. Pat yourself on the back. And that's what it's all about, having more good than bad. And eventually you have a lot more good than very little bad. And that's what it's all about. Good point. Well, that ends our podcast for today with Coach Bill and Coach Eston. Until next time, be healthy, be strong, and be a life warrior.
And be well.
The opinions and topics expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily support the opinions and views of the wellness community. We would love to hear your thoughts, so click on the message button and give us your constructive feedback. Thank you for listening and make a positive difference today.